Hi, this is Marquet with Offbeat Discoveries. We're back. It's been a long time, but we've got an unusual offbeat discovery today. I'm with Don Westall, and he has had a near encounter with a Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Sabe, whichever term you prefer. I like to say Bigfoot because it's just something we've always said. And I'm here with Dale and with Billy today. We have a little bit of an audience. But Don has an incredible story to tell about a Sabe, or Bigfoot, Sasquatch. So Don, back in 1973, was it?
Correct, 73 November.
Okay. You actually had a terrifying experience. And this was at nighttime, and you were on a horse ride with some buddies?
Right, me and a buddy of mine named Chris. We were just sitting around shooting the bull. It was a beautiful night with a full moon. And,
Clear sky? Clear sky?
Clear sky. Well, at the time it was perfectly clear. There was no clouds at all. So we got talking about horses because I have my horse and another friend of mine's horse out at my mom and dad's house. So it's getting up towards midnight, and we're like, let's go for a ride in the moonlight. Just, here we are, basically teenagers, 19, 20, 21 years old, whatever. But the bottom line is we rode out to my mom and dad's house, and we saddled up two horses that I had out there.
Wait a minute, let me ask you something. What city was this in?
This is on the south side of Charlotte.
Okay,
Yeah.
That's North Carolina.
Correct.
Okay.
In North Carolina.
So you went with Chris, and who else was?
It was a friend of his.
Okay.
Just a lady friend.
So you went to your mom's house?
Yeah, my mom and dad's house. They had a house on Sandy Porter Road.
Okay, so you got the horses there, and you decided to go for a midnight
We saddled
stroll.
them up, and it's the first time I've ever gone riding at night that I didn't carry at least a knife, a pistol, a shotgun, or whatever. All I had was my car keys in one pocket, my wallet with my driver's license, and an old one of those old silver flashlights that the magnet stuck to the dash, and the batteries were about 90% dead in it. You could maybe see 10 feet with it if you dropped something on the ground.
But it was a full moon, clear night.
But it was a full moon until we got to my mom and dad's house, and then some black clouds started kind of moving in, but they were like little puffs of clouds. So if you had like 4 minutes of moonlight, it might cover up the moon for like 1 minute for one of them to drift by the moon. So we were pretty much riding in moonlight, and every now and then it would kind of go real black for like about a minute or so, and then the moon would come back out.
So you guys got saddled up, and where were you headed when you were on your ride?
We were headed down to Griffith Lake, that's a place where we had all these trails, and there was all these trails. A lot of them were farm trails, farm tractors and stuff. And we rode our motorcycles, horses, and we did a lot of camping out down there. We had a lot of places we used to camp at night.
Okay.
We would spend the whole night down there around a campfire, just sitting down there having a good time.
Okay, now so had you ever hunted before when you were at that age, 20 years old or whatever?
I started hunting when I was like 8, 9 years old.
So you're familiar with the woods and the sounds of the
I
woods.
could track game when I was 9, 10 years old. I could track game anywhere, any kind of game.
All right, I just want to get that clear.
Yeah.
You're an experienced
I'm an experienced
woodsman.
woodsman.
And you're on your horses.
And I
you're
can ride.
heading to Griffin Lake.
Right.
Okay, and what happened?
So we go down to the lake, and the thing I always do when I go down there is I always check the beach for trash, because the people that own Johnson Farms told us that we were welcome to ride down there as long as nobody trashed the place.
Okay.
And sometimes people would go down there and they would throw beer cans out or trash, and we always carried little plastic bags with us and would clean it up so we wouldn't get any hassles with the people that own Johnson's Farms.
Okay, so you went down there and did you
I
have to
checked the
clean up
beach and everything. There was no beer cans, there was no trash anywhere. It was all nice and pristine, clean and everything. Just sat there on the two horses just shooting the bull.
And then you decided to go back to your mom's?
No.
Where were you going?
Well, what happened is we heard some crackling coming from the left-hand side.
So you heard crackling noise. What?
Yeah, I mean, it sounded like big limbs snapping and popping and cracking, and it sounded like a freaking elephant coming around the lake there through the woods. I mean, I was like, I expected a daggum buffalo or an elephant to come out of the...
Oh, that loud?
That was that loud.
Well, you were on a horse. I was going to say, could you feel it in the ground? But
no, I couldn't feel anything, and the horses were starting to kind of shake and shiver a little bit, like something was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
I
told Chris, because he was talking, I remember he was telling something and like this, and he was kind of looking around, and I just said, like, quiet, something's coming. And we got real quiet. All you could hear was the limbs. And when we got really quiet, it seemed like the limb cracking kind of slowed down a little bit. like something knew that we were onto it or whatever.
Right.
Okay, and this whole thing only lasted about a minute, maybe a minute and a half. And then that's when I heard this deep breathing noise. Now this is 1973.
Right.
And I had never heard anything before about recordings of what they thought Sasquatch or Bigfoot made that noise.
Right.
I'd never heard anything like this before.
Right.
It stopped and it was real quiet for like about 5-6 seconds, and then I heard this. It sounded like a giant gorilla or something, and my skin stood up, and it just as soon as that breathing started, the horses started and jerking back in their eyes. You could see their eyes because the moon was coming out.
Yeah.
And you could see they're pulling back in their eyes, and they were like looking up, and I'm trying to keep them under control with the reins and everything, and they were starting to walk backwards. You know, a horse will start walking backwards on you when it fears something. And I've never seen my horse Pacer or the other horse's name was Thunder. And I've never seen two horses like that just freaking out. I mean, they were freaking out like if somebody was coming at them with a big old baseball bat, getting ready to hit them in the face, whatever. They were scared. So I knew that we were getting ready to lose control of the horses, and I didn't want to be there on foot.
Right. With some big monster coming to get you.
Exactly. I just told Chris, just go. And there's several curves you got to go through, so there's some thick woods before you get in an open area. And I stayed right on and pushing Thunder along, and I'm on Pacer. And of course, the two of them were riding together, you know. And as we went out, we had to curve a little bit towards where that cabin, that noise was coming in. And I remember as I went around that curve, the noise was speeding up instead of being like it was starting to go like, but it was loud. I mean, it was really super loud.
You could hear that over the horses. And what was Chris doing?
He was in the saddle and she was sitting behind him, and he's not an experienced rider like I am.
Uh-oh.
And I was making sure that they stayed ahead of me because I didn't want them to lose the horse and be on foot with us down to one horse or without a horse, and all I got's that
flashlight.
Silly little silver flashlight. Half a flashlight. Yeah.
Oh my God. So
yeah.
you guys,
yeah.
so you went around the bend towards the cabin, and then what did you do?
Well, as we went around that bend, there was like 2 or 3 little bends in there, okay? And then there's a straightaway there that's no more than the length of a football field. No more than 100 meters, 100 yards,
now,
300 feet.
Was that outside the tree?
Well, there's briars. There are briar patches on both sides.
Okay.
And on the right-hand side, the briars are up over your head. They are
Okay.
so thick that if you try to get 5 or 10 feet into these briars, it literally strips your skin, cuts you all to pieces. They're thick, thick briar.
All right.
Okay? So you got this area about the length of a football field, and then across that briar patch to the right, the briar patch is only maybe 100 feet wide. Okay? And then there's a fence line with that forest that's around that cabin going down the lake where the swamp is. There's forest there. That's where the briars end. But there's a fence there that goes down through there with barbed wire on it.
All right.
Okay, a barbed wire cattle fence. Okay.
All right.
So what happens is you go about 100 yards or 300 feet, and now you got a choice. You can stay straight on the trail up through where those trees are hanging down pitch black, or you can make a right-hand turn because that fence that's on the other side of the briar patch ends there where that road goes across.
Oh, okay.
And the road stays out in the open, and you can just about go all the way up to the back of where the Pangles used to live, and the Mr. Porter, the Porters and the Pangles and everything lived up there. So you could stay in the open and actually see 7,500 feet out across the field,
so is that
up
what
the
you
back
did?
of somebody's house.
Is that what you did?
Well, we tried to. So what we did was I told Chris, let's stay in the open, and we turned, and when we got about 25 or 30 feet headed up in that open area towards where that wood line comes out, because we're going to have to pass the end of the wood line, and my horse almost dropped his chest down to the ground. I mean, he literally stopped and almost threw me over the top of his head. And when he did that, Chris's horse bumped into the side of me because they were right next to me because they were in front. And as I turned right, they came along the left-hand side of me. And his horse had pulled his head back to the left and was going down and kind of bumped into me. And I reached over and grabbed Chris's reins and kind of pulled his horse up and rode mine back up.
Okay.
And that's when got the horses to stop, and they were shaking.
Okay, so they didn't want to go down that
They
way.
did not
They
want to
knew
go.
something was
They
there.
were not going down that road.
Trust the animals. They have instinct. They knew something was there.
Exactly. They were not going down that freaking road. That's all there was to it. They were not going down that road.
Okay, so you got control of the horse again.
Correct.
What'd you do then?
Well, as soon as I got control of the horses, I heard over there in the woods this running noise coming through the woods of snap, crackling, and popping the limbs and stuff. And then it sounded like it came over the fence because then it was in the briars, right in the shade.
Oh my goodness.
And the moon was back off to the left and was kind of blocking about 30 or 40 feet of the briar patch coming off of the fence. So whatever it was came through the woods and came over the fence into the briar patch and traveled, I'm guessing maybe 25 feet or so through the briars.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And when that happened, it just as soon as it got in the briars, I could hear the noise increasing, and this time it was breathing even faster.
So you could hear it breathing again?
Yeah, it was like a...
Oh, Lord. Oh, God.
And I remember
What did
thinking
you
to
do?
myself, we're going to die. I really thought, we're going to die tonight. This thing's going to kill us, whatever it is.
Well, you knew it wasn't a bear.
There wasn't no bear.
And it wasn't a deer.
There wasn't no deer.
Okay.
Maybe a bull? Big bull?
Wasn't no bull.
Good, no, it got stuck in the woods. A bull. It wouldn't have been able to get through those briars.
Well, the thing about it is that when we heard that noise, I was able to hang on to Chris's horse. We turned around, went back over to where we turned off of the road, which was only maybe 25, 30 feet, maybe 40 feet, okay? And we turned right, and I remember taking my boot and kicking at Chris, go. I was like, go, just go. I wanted out of there. And because I wanted them to run. I didn't care what. So I got them to run it up the road. And we ran those horses, about 3/4 of a gallop, up through there, And I remember laying low in the saddle, looking back, thinking that thing was going to reach out and grab me any minute and was going through those trees. And we rode back up to the front of where Olympic High School was, and they had one great big floodlight out behind the school where the soccer field was and the baseball field where they played sports and stuff. And we rode right up underneath that light, and we sat underneath that light for a good half hour until we calmed down enough that we felt safe that we could ride the horses up the side of Sandy Porter Road back up to my mom and dad's house.
Wow. Okay, so that was pretty terrifying, but you didn't actually see anything, but you didn't have to. It's like your senses were telling you danger.
Yeah, and there was something that happened the next morning that even freaked us out even more.
And what was that?
Well, we went back to the apartment. He took her home, okay? Came back. We sat up all night. I couldn't go to sleep. And about 5 o'clock in the morning, I told Chris, I said, you want to go? He said, I ain't going back down there. I'm not going.
I don't blame him.
And I got him my old Mustang, my old 66 Mustang Fastback, drove over to my mom and dad's house, went in the back bedroom where my brother Harry, who's 2 years younger than I am, I drug him out of bed, told him what had happened, and we got our shotgun, pistol, knife, we got everything we went hunting with. Went back out there and caught the two horses, saddled them up.
You did not go back there.
Yeah, the next morning at the break of day.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen,
I want to know what that thing was.
You are brave. I don't know anybody that would have
Well,
went
I
back
had my shotgun. I had a 22 9-shot pistol, my big old hunting knife. I was ready for bear then. And my brother brought his rifle, and we were.
You might have been ready for bear, but I don't think that's what you were going to see.
Well, the most bizarre thing is when we went back to the lake. So as we go down the trail, I got down and I would make a sweep back and forth like a windshield wiper. And it took us about 2 hours just to travel that road that's only about a quarter of a mile long, about 12, 13, 1,400 feet down through there. Took over 2 hours to do that because I would go off and I was looking for anything that looked like a track, an open dirt area, a step or whatever. And I literally covered that whole road all the way down to where that intersection was where we turned to the right, and I went around on the inside the fence there where the woods was and went almost all the way down to where the mud swamp started. Couldn't find any broken limbs, any tracks, whatever, but I could not find anything in the briars, the woods, or anything. And the only tracks I found was There was a lot of little bird tracks. There was a couple of rabbit trails I saw go across. And down in the mud swamp, there was raccoon tracks in the mud.
That's it.
And that was it. And even after we got back to where that second time there was a road intersection, I still swept that whole area where the road curves in and out all the way down to the lake.
Nothing.
There was nothing.
What
Not
about
a
the
thing.
beach?
Ah, that is what's so strange is, okay, we were there that night.
Right.
Nothing there. The next morning, there was this dog laying there about this long, you know, including the tail and everything. And he was kind of curled over like this, and he was laying on, I think he was laying, yeah, because he was facing this way, and he was laying on his left-hand side, and it looked like one of those African dogs. It was really dark colors of the dingo that they got in Egypt and everything. And I remember he had black fur on his face, and he was laying there, and his eyes were open, and his eyes were waxed. Just like if you get a fish, when you catch a fish and you let him sit out in the sun a little while, and their eyes dry out and look like little drops of, you know, wax. His eyes looked like drops of
So
wax.
he wasn't alive then?
He had been dead for days.
Did you see any drag marks in the sand? Nothing.
All I saw was the horse close where we were sitting on the horses.
So that dog just
The dog was
appeared there.
just laying there with no tracks around the dog or anything. Nothing. No drag. And one thing I learned,
That's weird.
because I grew up with some Indians when I was little is how to do brush mark. There's a way you brush, you know, make everything
To erase footprints?
right, and there was no brush looking marks or anything, nothing from any leaves or limbs like the area had been brushed or anything. It was just all natural raindropped sand.
So it had to have been dropped there.
Well,
Tossed
I
there.
even went and got a great big stick
Mhm.
and went over there and turned the dog over to see if there was any bullet holes or chew marks or anything.
Yeah.
There was no holes, there was no wounds, there was no sign. It was just like the dog had just laid down and died right there, maybe at least a good 4 or 5 days earlier.
But yet you were there the night before, under full moon, and the reflection of the water,
Yeah.
and cleaning up the beach.
Right.
So
The-
you know that dog was not
The
there.
dog was not there.
And it's not that big of a beach.
No, it's not
So,
that.
yeah.
That beach is probably about here to just past your cabinets, past the sinks. That's all. It's only about maybe 50, 60 feet wide, and about 7, maybe 8, 10 feet to the water's edge. And
Wow.
it kind of got a little crescent shape to it. And that dog was not there. It's no more than about 5 feet from where that dog was our horse tracks. I mean, that's how close we were to where that dog thing was. Because I sat there on a horse and I looked at that beach right there, full moon.
Yeah.
I mean, I could have read a book, but
Okay,
that
so
dog was not there.
let me ask you something. Do you know what that was you heard in the woods?
Well, let me put it to you this way. It was some 15, 20 years later. I was listening to George Norrie one night on Coast to Coast.
Coast to coast.
And a guy put a recording on that he had recorded in Washington State of what he said he believed was a Bigfoot. And when he played that, I was just like I went back to 1973, my skin crawled. It was the exact sound on that recording that I heard that night in the woods.
And
At 3
Chris heard.
different tone levels.
And Chris
The
heard.
same
Yep.
breathing sound. And it just freaked me out. I was like, holy, that is what I heard.
So now you know what you heard. You know what it is.
I
You
can,
didn't take the time.
I'll just put it this way. Everything I said is fact.
Yep. You don't know
But
for
I
sure,
didn't see
but
anything. But I
you-
didn't see
I know.
Yeah.
You don't know. You don't have any footprint evidence. You
Yeah.
don't have any broken branches. So how could there not be any broken branches when you heard them breaking?
Yeah. And I had 2 people with me.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I was just dreaming it one night.
No. And this is back before
Bigfoot and all that
was
stuff,
the
yeah.
phenomenon and all that.
Yeah,
mess anyways.
yeah.
But so
Now, when I be honest with you, I had heard about Sasquatch and stuff like that when I was younger, but I never thought 2 cents about it because I never engaged myself personally.
right. But after that,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, Don is one brave man because I've heard a lot of similar stories
Yeah.
in my research, and grown men will not go back in the woods anymore, and so they lose their passion for hunting and hiking and everything else because once they have an experience like this, they're too afraid to do it.
Yeah.
But there's a wonderful man that has a YouTube channel called Steve Isdell, and he says whenever he goes into the woods, he just tells them, he flat out just says, okay, I know you're here. You know I'm here. Leave me alone. I'll leave you alone. And I'm here to get meat for my family. So you just carry on. Just leave me alone. And after his encounters, you know, they've left him alone. But he has to do that every time he goes out. But there still are certain places where he can't go because he feels pressure, you know. Like you were saying, your skin was popping up and your hair stands up.
Oh, I thought I was gonna fall apart. I mean, I just felt like a little jigsaw puzzle. I just felt like I was just gonna come apart in 1,000 pieces. It was. I have been in gang fights and fist fights and stuff where I was literally on the edge of adrenaline, but nothing like this. This was nothing like that night. That night was like the devil himself was getting ready to eat us. It scared the jeepers out of me.
Okay, now.
But now there was one incident that happened right after that, no more than a month or so after that. And my cousin Harry, my brother Mark, and several of their friends came over with their bikes, and they went riding on those trails down to that same lake. And they told me that when they went down there, they was getting close to the lake, one of the trails right next to that same road that we were on, a little girl walked out of the woods about 8, 9 years old, dressed just like Laura Ingalls on Little House on the Prairie, the way they described it. Said she looked just like she'd walked out of the 1880s. Said she had the button-down shoes, the white lacy socks, the dress come all the way down almost to her ankles there, with like a blue dress with all the lace and everything. She was wearing a bonnet and everything, dressed up just like out of some old movie, and said that she stopped them right there in the trail. So they all just stopped, no more than about 10 feet from her. And she goes, "Are you the ones coming down here and killing my animals?" He said, he looked back and his buddies were already gone. It said that was all they could do to catch up on the trail, so they took off.
Yeah.
Scared the jeepers out of them. And after they went back up to the Olympic school, they sat there for about 15 minutes, and he said they all got real brave then. Let's go back down there. We got to go down there and find that girl again, find out what's going on. So they went back down to the same spot. And so they got, even three of them got off there and went and made a complete circle around the woods where that little girl had stopped them. And they couldn't find anything.
So that's a hot spot.
Yeah.
That is a hot spot.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to end this here. Thank you so much, Don, for joining Offbeat Discoveries and telling us your, I like to say story, but...
well, whatever it was, sure
us.
sounded like Bigfoot to me. I
Yeah.
didn't see no Bigfoot. I got to be honest, I didn't see it. But, man, let me tell you, that breathing, it sounded like a 55-gallon can breathing. Boy, that one had whatever it was, had the biggest freaking lungs.
Yeah.
I mean, it was enough to make your skin fall off.
Make you lose your hair.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. Thank you guys for being here to witness this. And Don, would you be willing to sign an affidavit to say that everything you
I'd be
said
willing
was
to
true?
sign one.
All right. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching Offbeat Discoveries, and we'll be back with more interesting stories.